try this again. Am I on Facebook now? Okay. I did. Okay. Well, then how did Trish Clary say hi? She's on YouTube. Oh, okay. We are so sorry. Tisha didn't click the right button. I thought I had. So we are on now. And if you were looking for us, here we are. We're going to have to start over with the weather broadcast. Yes. So, yes. Okay, now here's all our people. Yay! I see everybody now. I'm sorry I hit the live broadcast for YouTube, but I didn't do it for Facebook. I didn't realize I had to do it twice. So I apologize to everybody out there. So today we have an exciting show with Lynne Haley of Sapphire Quilting. You are going to learn about personal seam allowances, which is going to be very enlightening as to why maybe your blocks don't come out the right size, or your quilts don't come out the right size, or you just never seem to get exactly the measurement that they say on the pattern. I think they lie, but she's going to tell us all about that. So we are excited to have her join us. She'll be here in just a second. Don't forget that on Monday, we will have Krista Moser from the Quilted Life. If you got to see her last year in February, not this year, a year ago in February, she was a guest teacher for us. And if you got to see her, then you know how fabulous she is. She's got some great patterns out right now, and you will want to stop in and see her, listen to her talk, chat with us, and get an idea of how she gets her inspiration, see some of her new patterns, and just how she got started in quilting. So think of some questions you have, because we're going to have Lynne come on in about 1 minute. If you will hold on, I see lots of people that are finding us. Yay, I'm so happy. Somebody, Virginia Robbins from San Antonio, that's where I'm from. Yay, I probably say that every time, don't I? Okay, let's invite Lynne over here, and we're going to add her to the stream. There she is.
Is this okay? You got me?
Yes, we have you. You are on. How are you?
I'm great. It is humid out today. Even in my studio, it's humid.
It is. I got to move the chair.
It's not raining. And how are you guys?
Your sound is kind of cutting in and out.
Now I can't hear you.
Are you okay?
I'm there. Are you there?
Yeah, now we hear you. Okay, your sound was kind of cutting in and out for a second. So
I wonder what. I hope it doesn't do that.
I don't think so. You sound okay now.
Okay.
So thanks so much for joining us today. I am so excited to have you here. So Lynne Haley of Sapphire Quilting. First, I want to ask you to brag a little on yourself, because I am so excited to have you, but not everybody knows what a star you are.
You have to go slow. You're cutting out.
Okay, whatever you're doing is not working.
I'm not doing anything. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's like real slow and you're very blurry.
Yeah, I don't know.
Are you on the computer or your phone?
Yes. Computer.
Yes, you're on the computer.
Yes, computer.
Oh. Noelle says you might have to get closer to your router.
Go out. You're kidding.
Or sign out and sign on again.
You want me to do that? I'll try that, okay?
Yeah, why don't you sign out and sign on again? So we're going to work through that. My technician says to move closer to the router. And it's okay. We've only been on for 5 minutes. So she should be coming in again in just a second. If you missed our weather report, today is Friday. I can put my glasses on. May 15th. And it is cloudy outside. It's supposed to start storming tonight about 10 o'clock, which means I will be up all night with dogs because they all get freaked out when it's storming. And then it's supposed to go away by like 4 in the morning, and it's supposed to be back like in the afternoon. And so it's going to be a lot of fun tomorrow. But if you are in our Saturday or Sunday sampler, then you can come through and pick up your next month that we had skipped last month in April. You can pick up your April blocks tomorrow on Saturday and between 11 and 2, and come bring your blocks with you so we can take a look at them and see them. So have y'all had a chance to look at that gorgeous fabric that we showed off yesterday? Or yes, veggies. We had the box opening. Have you had a chance to see that? It is so pretty. Oh my gosh, it's all on the website now. If you haven't seen it, go to Not Your Mama's Quilt Store and shop, and then fabrics, and you'll see fabric groupings, and it's the first one on the list. It's called Veggies, and it's by Martha Begley. So let's see how we're doing here. Lisa Terry, hi. Penny Howie, Candy's watching from the doctor's office. Penny Howie, yes, we use a lot of CBD oil treats with the dogs. Yes, Elton and James Haley are excited to hear Lynne talk to them about quilting. Okay, Mary, she's having a little bit of technical difficulties because her it wasn't coming through very easily. So she's having to either move closer to the router or find a better place to sit because her voice wasn't coming through continuously, was breaking in and out. So we're giving her a little bit of time to sign back on. She's probably moving if I know her. She's either moving or trying to find a better spot. Yes, Trisha figured out how to see us live. Let's see. Okay, Lynne looks like she's signing on. Her camera's not on yet. There it is. Okay, let's bring her back on.
Still slow?
There, hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
It still has a leg.
Hi. Your daughter-in-law says Elton and James are waiting to hear you talk about quilting, to teach them
Maybe
about
I can.
quilting. You're stopping, Lynne.
I'll walk with you. I'm going to take my computer somewhere else.
You might have to kick Zeke off the internet.
I tried. He said he's not on.
It's okay.
All right.
We're a fun group of quilters.
Here we go. Here we go. Let's see if we can get closer to something.
Yeah, the router. I have to do this at home. That's why I come up here to work sometimes, because between my husband on the internet and 2 college daughters on the internet, and one of the girls is invariably playing some kind of game, and it uses up all the bandwidth, and so I can't get anything done, so I have to leave the house and come work up here.
Here I am. Is it better?
Yes, it's better.
Okay. So now I'm just going to have a table by me so I can store my stuff.
Regina, she's not gonna move around a whole lot once we get settled.
Am I making everybody sick?
No, you're not making anybody sick.
Now you have to look up.
People are asking me questions about the dog. Yes, I have tried CBD oil and the Thunder shirts for the dogs, and yes, they do help, but they are still very neurotic dogs. So we'll see
I
how
have the
that.
same problem with my dog.
I know.
All right.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Now we're good.
Okay.
Yes,
Right.
I can hear Lori in the background going, now I can see her. Now I see her.
Okay, well, I'll try not to get my keyboard. I'm going to use my laptop on my lap, and I have some props. Maybe we'll use. We'll see.
There you go. So is Linda Gartman Genzen related to you?
She is my eldest sister.
Well, she's watching today. She's watching.
Yeah, that's my eldest sister. She sews way better than I do. She's like you, Tisha.
Oh, no. Don't even start that. Oh, no.
All right.
When I was sewing and I was cussing. So, yes.
Actually, we're both going to grow our roots out. Oops. We're growing our roots out, she and I. So
well, look, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. We're never getting hired. It saves a lot of money. Yeah. Going down.
I have to wear it loose on broadcast days.
Oh.
So what I started to ask you before was tell us about you. Brag on yourself for a minute.
Oh, like what I've done and how I've gotten here.
And ribbons and how you've been published. And
I have. Well, I'm published because of MJ Felix. You know her. And she and I started to teach together way back. And then I bowed out and left her high and dry. I was like, I can't do this. It's too much work. I've got to keep my other stuff going on. And so, we were actually published with a calendar. She made the quilt and I quilted it. It won ribbons in Dallas, and we've run other ribbons through, mostly her quilts and me quilting. And a lot of my clients have won ribbons. Some I know about and some I don't know about because they don't always tell you that they're entering shows. And myself, I've won a lot of ribbons. I have a box. I used to have them on my wall, and they're in a big box. In the boxes, just in a big box.
No.
They are, but and you know, I was published a couple times. One time, it was about pricing and how to price your quilting through a long arm magazine, and other times it's just been a few words here and there that people call up and say, hey, you know. But, I also work for Linda Taylor, who is where I got my start. And I have, I just think the world of her and her family. And now Diana and her husband owned Linda's Electric Quilters, the best people on the face of the planet. And they let me there and have lots of fun when I taught long arm quilting there. And then I taught the staff quilting. So yeah, it wasn't the career I had intended. And if I had to relive my life over again, everybody always asked me what I would be. And I would love to be an implosion expert, blow things up.
Oh, that would be so much fun.
Or they could say, we're taking down a building down in Dallas, and I would be with the one with the.
Oh, that could be so much fun.
I know.
That would, I would love that.
My second life. I won't be making quilts. I'll be blowing them up.
No, don't do that. So, how did you become a quilter?
Okay. In 1985, I was working at Chemical Abstracts in Columbus, Ohio, and I always made clothing before that. Home decor, little thing. I walked in and I said to the lady, I'm going to have a baby and I need to make a quilt. And her name was Bev, and she had this kind of funny nasal. All right, you're going to have to take a class. Okay. We had to draft our patterns. We had no rotary cutters. I mean, 85 cutters were pretty new. We had no mats, no rulers. We drew cardboard templates. Thank you. And we, stitched by hand. And I made a pillow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then it didn't drive me away. I continued.
And that was for your first son?
Yeah, this was for my first son. And he is now 33 or 34. He was born in 85. So figure that out. anyway, so then I just stopped, and I had more children, and they needed quilts, right? And then I moved over and joined a sewing circle in Singapore with all the expat women and some Singaporean women, some people that were actually citizens of Singapore, women from all over the world. And I learned so much from these ladies. We met every Tuesday for 8 hours.
Oh my gosh.
No. But mind you, we all had maids. And so our maids took care of our children while we sewed. And our maids cooked us up.
That's what I need. I'll just let the maid take care of that.
Like, what can I need some more tea? I mean, it was truly like that.
That's what I need.
And I had a great maid. My maid was wonderful. So anyway.
I would be a terrible lady to have a housekeeper or a maid because I'd be like, would you please handle those yelling kids?
Oh, I was worse. I was worse. I'd be like, can I help you clean the house?
I felt like, get here already.
Well, anyway, and we never stopped. We moved back from Singapore, and I could not be in the tech field anymore. I was just, way behind in my field. So I bought a gamble, put it in my dining room, and started sewing. And that was 1998, and I've been doing it ever since. And
wow.
So here I am, 20 some years later, still sewing, and I love it. I really do love it. There are days when I'm pinning a quilt on, and I'm thinking, how many more times can I bleed? But it doesn't deter me. I love it. Everything's new, and I love all the new fabrics and all the modern stuff. So here we go. You ready to talk about P.S.A.s?
Yes.
All right.
My screensaver came on. Okay, there.
I'm a chatty person. Okay, so P.S.A.
Tell us, you were going to talk to us about P.S.A.s.
Right.
Your, what do we call it? Service announcement, public service announcement.
A public service announcement.
It's a PSA on P.S.A.s. It's a public service announcement on personal seam allowances.
Well, it really wasn't called P.S.A. It was coined by Mary Ellen Hopkins, who has since passed away. And I think she would be close to her 80s by now. But she called it a PPM, personal private measurement. And she was the woman who wrote the book, It's Okay If You Sit on My Quilt. And her attitude about quilting was, just make it. We don't care if your seam allowance is 5/8 inch, which all of us clothing makers would use. And that seam is really big so that you can do adjustments, right? But her idea was to get you to sew. And that worked really well because you heard me state earlier that I cut my own templates with my own, and then you could add your seam allowance and you were sewing by hand, so you would follow that line. So it didn't matter if you had 1/4 inch or 1/16 of an inch or even a 1/2 inch, as long as you stayed on your line, right? We added, did I bring them? Yes, here they are. Then we added things like this in the past couple years. And I don't know if I'm allowed to show this, so I will hide that. How's that? Can you see that? Okay, this is a template for a feathered star, and it has the seam allowances built into it, but they're not marked on it, right?
Right.
1/4 inch, baby. You got to do a 1/4 inch. You can't do any bigger. You can't do any smaller, or you're not going to have a beautiful feathered star. And this is a template. And I think you can see the 1/4 inch built into that one. At least you can see that. That's a Jen Kingwell. And then here's another one with, I don't know if I can, another one from that same. So we went from sewing by hand, marking all the lines, and it didn't really matter. You could have a PSA, a personal seam allowance. You could sew a 5/8 inch seam and you'd still have a quilt that worked. Then we had to get more because we're using these templates and we're buying kits. Don't you just love kits? You just click, you got a kit, you come home, and the instructions in the kit are kind of built around 1/4 inch seam allowance. However, we can buy really interesting patterns, such as this one, which you turned me on to, which, by the way, if you're a beginner quilter, fabulous beginner quilter. Number one, because you don't have to seam the backing. Number 2, you don't have to worry about matching points anywhere. And number 3, you know, if you're a new quilter, you're probably not really precise. And it doesn't matter if your personal seam allowance is a 1/2 inch.
Exactly.
What it does mean is that you have 9 seams across here. This is hard for me to do backwards, but you have 9 seams. So if you take a 1/2 inch seam times 9, oh gosh, don't we get to do this? That's 2 inches that you have if you're off by, you know, a 1/4 inch. So on a quilt like this, it really doesn't matter, and you can have lots of fun. And I put my sewing machine. I have a little helper here to show you. I'm making that quilt. My sewing machine is on rabbit because my sewing machine can go industrial fast. So I can make that quilt on rabbit. But if I wanted to do a really nice 1/4 inch seam and not speed around the racetrack, I'm either going to put it on turtle or halfway between. Because I can go really fast and have a nice seam allowance. But again, on gold medal, it doesn't matter. And you can start to practice and get good. All right. So here is an example of my personal seam allowance for gold medal and my real true 1/4 inch. So you need to look at your pattern and say, I'm making a log cabin quilt. Does it matter? Probably not. Go fast. Take a little bit less, a little bit more than a 1/4 inch. Your blocks will probably square up and turn out fine. But if you're going to make something that requires precision, you're going to need to make sure that your 1/4 inch is your personal seam allowance truly is a 1/4 inch. Okay, so on my machine, I did a little thing for you all. I'm going to drop these.
Are y'all enjoying this? Y'all need to be giving thumbs up and hearts and everything to her while you're learning.
I don't know how to get this on.
No, you're doing great.
On my machine, if I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that's where the arrow points there, you can see it goes past my presser foot there. That's a 1/4 inch seam allowance on my machine. But what I end up with, if I use that, is I'm back to my other photo, which is where I end up with this. I end up with a bigger, it takes a bigger seam for me. So that's not good if I'm making something like a feathered star, which I tend to make, I call bucket list quilts, feathered stars, this thing behind me, lone stars, double wedding rings, all those. And the other thing that it matters is that say you're going to make a quilt and you're going to add borders. I realize that this doesn't have borders on it. But what if you just wanted to add borders to this quilt? And you cut everything out, and it tells you on the back of this card, it says, your quilt will turn out 42 inches by 52 inches. And you took your personal seam allowance was a little bit larger than a 1/4 inch. And it tells you to cut your borders 42 inches and 50. Well, guess what? Your borders are going to be too big. And guess what's going to happen to your quilt? Wavy, wavy borders. And you're going to go, but I followed the pattern. I followed the pattern exactly. What you didn't do was use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But there's no way around that. Don't cut your borders until you're all done. And then when you do cut your borders, fold your quilt in half, measure across just the middle of your quilt, cut that border for the top and the bottom, put it on. And then, turn your quilt, lay it in half, measure that, cut it and put it on. And you'll have exact measurements for because of the personal seam allowance that you took. So I think, I like to sew some things, just knock them out, get done, be really fast with it. Then you don't have to be accurate and precise. You don't have to go for that little 1/4 inch seam allowance. But if you are making something like a lone star or a feathered star and you have wide seams or anything that is going to require a lot of points, then your personal seam allowance has to be the 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is kind of hard. But the more you do it, the better you get.
Now, how do you measure out your 1/4 inch seam allowance? If I'm somebody out there right now and they're watching you and go, I wonder where my perfect 1/4-inch seam allowance is. What can you tell them to go figure it out?
Okay. You cut 3 strips, 1, 2, 3, 1.5 inches wide. And then you sew what you think is a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And then you can press them. And then you hold your ruler up and you measure. And if that middle one is exactly 1 inch, then you have a 1/4 inch.
Mm-hmm.
If the middle strip is larger than 1 inch, you're taking a less than a 1/4 inch. So you need to kind of hit your machine, try it again.
Mm-hmm.
If it's smaller, you're taking a bigger seam allowance. Mm-hmm. So look at that. Whenever you find that happy medium, you might have to do it 2 or 3 times. But when you find this is 1 inch across here, then you'll know. And you can put tape on your machine. You can use, some people use moleskin. Are you familiar with that? You can cut some moleskin for your 1/4 inches.
Yeah, we have some little foam stickers that we have in the store, and they're little strips of foam, and you just put it there, and then you can butt your fabric right up next to it.
That's what I would do. I would do that because that's proven. People have used that. So here's the difference. When I do my 1/4 inch, how do I get this to you?
Yeah, let me see it.
You see where that, I don't know if I can get right here. See this? Yeah. That's my real 1/4 inch line, but I have to move over here to get a true 1/4 inch on my machine. And who would have thought that? But you know what? It's made in Japan. Guess what? They use millimeters. They just mark that. They're made in a different country. They may be using different. So my machine is a metric machine, and I want to sew with what's ours? I don't know what we're called, the British system. I don't think
Imperial. The Imperial. Yeah.
Because here it is. If I run it, can you see that? If I run it right along the line, and my seam is too big, and then this measurement is this becomes too small. So
right.
So set a marking up if you want to use an exact 1/4 inch. Set a marking up. If you just want to go crazy and go fast, just use the marking on your machine. For instance, for the gold medal, this one, I used marking on my machine. I didn't care.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons we use that. That's our beginner quilt class, the pattern that we use, because I realized a long time ago when I started teaching new quilters that they want to walk away with something that they've made, and they want to have that excitement of having it done. And when I was teaching the classes that would last 6 weeks and you learn to make 6 different blocks, I had such a high dropout rate, and people didn't finish because it was hard to commit to 6 classes. And life, and it was hard to commit to that, but in this class they can finish it in a day, and they come back and they are so excited, and it's such an easy but pretty pattern. You can just whip them out and
have fun. Plus you get to pick the cat border.
Yes.
So you can have a really fun quilt. Now this, I was impressed when I see a lot of these come through my studio from your shop. And they're so cute because the quilters will write, "This is my first quilt," and that just
yes.
A lot of the new quilters, they're young with little kids at home.
Yes.
Mommy, read the story. 1 hour at night to sew a quilt.
Yes.
I'm like, we raise the kids. We can stay up all night if we want. Nobody's.
And plus, when somebody is a new quilter, you want them to feel that excitement and love what they just made and want to come in and do it again. If they feel like they couldn't finish it or it was so hard, then they kind of lose that excitement. And I've had people say, "Oh, I tried it and I wasn't any good," or "I started one and I never finished it," or, "My points never matched up." And it's like, that's hard for a new quilter. I mean, even an experienced quilter, I picked out some points this week. I was working on something and I had to pick it out a couple of times because I couldn't get them to match up. And you take a new person, that's hard.
Well, I think one of we've been quilting for such a long time. It's too picky, right? Because if you're making a quilt for show, that's one thing. If you're going to win a ribbon, that's one. You have to be competitive, and you have to do exactly, make every point match up. If you're making a quilt to give to a family member or a friend, are they going to be like with their magnifying glass? Whoa, look at that! No. They're going to take it from the heart, and that's what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have taught people before that if they start off, I realized the hard way when I first started quilting, that if they start off in their seam allowances, you think you're sewing at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and say you're halfway through that quilt or even a 1/4 of the way into the quilt, not to go back and fix your seam allowances midway through the quilt.
No, just
keep going.
You know when to use that. And get picky, and don't get picky in the beginning. Just go and have. It's a hobby. It's not my hobby. I mean, it's my hobby to do a business, but it's a hobby. And why do we have hobbies? So we can calm down and just enjoy, just feel creative. You know, even if
enjoy the process.
And so I need to turn people against their hobby. Just go have fun. And if your points don't match,
so I see Miss Brandy Alvarez on here, and she says she uses the same edge of the same ruler for each cut that she makes. So she doesn't change rulers or change sides on the ruler.
Oh, interesting.
And she says it ensures consistency then.
See, we can learn things from everybody. And Brandy does a very precise quilt. So, yeah.
And then Linda says, Mom is watching too.
Oh, hi, Mom.
Our parents watch it. Well, not mine, but Lori's parents watch also. I love it when the parents get on and watch us.
I see that.
Can you see the messages on the side?
No, I don't. I had in the other room. I had the other computer set up, but I couldn't. I guess my router didn't want to talk to us back there.
It didn't like it.
Yeah.
So tell me about how to get borders flat. That was one of the things that you said. Sometimes you get quilts in that borders aren't quite flat like they should be.
Okay.
And so tell us what causes that and how to avoid it.
Okay. So when you have a quilt, and usually you're done, right? This is what I used to do. I'd put my quilt, it came to border time. And if you take a class, typically they don't discuss borders. It's like, okay, go home and put those borders on when you're done and you'll be finished, right? Mm-hmm. So say you're going to put a 4-inch border on your quilt, and the pattern says your quilt's supposed to be 40 inches wide, and you cut your border 40 inches wide because that's what the pattern said.
Right.
That's probably not a good idea. Save your fabric. When you finish your quilt and you're ready to put on your borders, if you say we're putting on a horizontal border, top and bottom, I like to fold my quilt in half, smooth it all out, take my measuring tape and measure across there. I'm sorry, I see that I'm not in there. Measure across the quilt, and that is the measure for both the top and the bottom border. Okay. It's not, maybe my quilt turned out 40 inches, not 42 inches. I don't want a 42-inch border because then I have all that fabric in there. That's 2 inches of fabric, right? So measure your quilt when you're ready to put your border on. And both borders should have the same measurement. So I just measure across the middle. I don't do it like, a long time ago, we had to measure the top, the bottom, the middle, and take it everything. And that was usually like a lot of math. I don't want to do that. And I know my good friend, Emily, she doesn't even measure. She just lays her fabric across it and snips it off.
That's what I do.
And it works, right? You get a nice smooth. So you don't even have to have a measuring tape. And then when you go to put those on, fold your border in half and crease it, make a little center mark, and pin it to the center of your quilt, pin both the ends, and then sort of ease any fabric in between, because you may have a little bit of easement. Your top of your quilt may be, it may actually be going like this. I'm exaggerating, but
a
little bit of easement. And if you do have to ease, put the fullest part on the bottom when you're sewing it on the feed dogs, because the feed dogs grab and pull, right? So that'll ease the fabric in too.
Oh, so like for instance, if my border is half an inch too long, right? You're saying to, instead of sewing it with my quilt top and then the border on top and running it through like that, to put the border on the bottom and the quilt top on top and run it through, and that'll ease in that excess.
I'm a big pinner and I like pinning. You should still pin, but the feed dogs on the bottom will take that up. The other option you have to put the walking foot on top, but I really don't like my walking foot. I try not to use it.
Oh, I love mine. I don't love my walking foot.
Oh, see, well, now if you can use your walking foot, it'll work the same way. But I just don't like to put my walking foot on. My walking foot have never been fabulous. Anyway, so that's the method. And then you have the top and bottom border on. Iron them nice. Now fold the quilt in half again when you're ready to put your vertical borders on. Fold it in half the other way and measure across the center of the two borders and put those on. When you can get away with off a little bit and you'll get a slight wave in your border, and I, as the quilter, can handle that. But say you're off a lot and you have the first border, then you put the second border on, and the third border. If you don't measure each time, it just grows, and your quilt grows and grows, and then I can't help you as a quilter. I can just look at it and be sad, or I can call you and say, "I'm going to take all your borders off, and you're going to pay me some money, right?" Or back. Another thing that is new quilters, and this is what I did because nobody taught us. I would just lay my quilt. I would cut a great big huge extra long border, and I would just sew it on, and then I'd lay it and kind of smooth it out, and just take my rotary cutter and on each end, and it looked great, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, not a good idea.
You're just like, can't we just do it this way? And until I took a couple classes and learned how to do that. Now, the other thing maybe we talked about real briefly, and then we'll probably go, is that when you're seaming your fabric for borders, instead of seaming a straight seam, and I don't have an example, seam if I can do this. Seam it on the 45, even if it's just one piece of fabric. And I never thought that was very important, but a lot of quilts come into my studio and they've seamed their borders with a straight seam and not an angled seam, a 45-degree angle.
Are you talking about a mitered corner?
Not a corner, just say you have to piece your
just piecing your border. Okay, yeah.
And I never thought that really made much of a difference until Alice Wilhoit, a class I was in with her, she held a quilt up in front of the room to allow us to look at it, and it was amazing. You could not see the seam that was on the miter, on the 45-degree, and you could see far away across the room. Your eye is drawn to straight lines.
Wow.
I always paint my borders, with if this was the border, I always seamed them this way. But then once I took Alice's class, I now seam them 45. It makes a difference. Unless, if you're matching a pattern, trying to match a pattern on a 45-degree angle might drive you insane. So maybe then you should straight seam.
Yeah, like if you have one of the long flowered vines or something like that,
then it might not be worth it.
It's fine the other way,
right? I mean, you have to. Everybody should enjoy their hobby. So if this is your hobby, don't go nuts. Be happy and enjoy it, and go to the quilt store. Go to Tisha's.
Come to us. We'll help you. We'll tell you about it.
Oh yeah, you're a great teacher.
Thank you. So Michelle says, I always miter because my friend told me to. Michelle Sechrist Waters. Is she one of your friends? My friend told her to, and she does it. And I think that's a great idea. I haven't really, I mean, if I'm sitting there and I think about it, I do it, but I hadn't really thought about it, but I will definitely do it now.
Well,
that's a great idea.
Before you do it, have any quilts there where you've done it with the full team? Keep your eyes on it. And then when you do it the next time, walk around when you have a quilt hanging up and say, huh. And, you know, maybe you can say, yeah, that's full of it. Or you'll say, yeah.
Yeah.
Then, you know.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great tip. So what about backings?
Ooh.
What can you tell us about backings? And also, if anybody has any questions out there, type them up in the comments, hit share, hit like, ask questions. That's what Lynne is here for today. Michelle says also stagger those miters.
Oh, I mean, say you're going to miter even on sashing, and even if you have this like a 12-inch block, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have to do any miter seams, don't do like this 12-inch block miter lines up here, and this 12-inch block, you know, don't go across. And even on borders, like on the right side border, make a miter near the top and your other one near the center or the bottom. Don't have both mitered seams of your, you know, just
right. That makes sense.
Anyway, so you asked me one more question. What was it?
About the backings. What can you tell us about backings? Because that is something you have to use as the quilter.
Well, number one, I used to dislike all of the extra wide backings, but about probably 10 years ago, the companies started using a better quality base fabric. So then I wasn't against them, but I used to be against them. But one thing they do with a 108 or a 112-inch backing, they fold the fabric over twice and then they wrap it on the board. And that distorts the fabric. So one time I asked a motor rep, I said, you know, how can we get around that? Because the fabric is so distorted. The answer wasn't really what I think any quilt store owner would do for you, but it was like, try to get the fabric closest to the inside of the bolt. Well, that's kind of hard to do. You're not going to like unwrap your whole bolt for me because that's less distorted there. But the real way to do it is to, say I need 72 inches, the first cut on that of the fabric, I cut it and I rip it. And you might cut it and put a 2-inch piece at the top where you cut it. And by the time you get down to that other 112 inches, 7 or 8 inches. And you need to know that. So I used to tell people, buy at least a half yard more. And that kind of defeated the purpose of having extra wide fabric, right? You're paying more money. But now all the shops seem to rip when they first get it in, they rip it or something. And so as long as they just go across, measure out the yardage that you're requesting, and then rip that other, and it may look like this, but that's okay. If you pin it to your quilter, we will pin it on straight. And I roll it back and forth a few times and it straightens my fabric right out. And so then I'm really happy with that. That works. And you can use that on your machine too, I'm sure. You know, The other thing is if they're going to seam it, they're going to use quilters cotton 35 inches wide. Cut that selvage off from the get-go. Just cut your selvage off because that will pucker on your seam. And I get so many quilts in that the selvage is on there. If there's enough of a seam allowance there, I will personally cut those off for my clients, but not always. You know, it just depends what's going on and how the quilt looks. The other thing for backing, a lot of people will just take all of their extra fabrics and make a big back. I recommend they press those seams open as they go, because open. You know, in the old day, you didn't press them open. That everybody was saying, "Oh, there's stronger seams." No, press them open because when they go on your long arm machine, they can take a tiny little tap, and it could just be really, really hard for us. So if somebody asks me to seam for them for their backing, I always press the seam open. I press the back open flat, and then I flip the quilt open, and I use my hand to feel it, and I iron that. So, you know, that's really nice. We quilters love it when you all do that. But if you don't do that for me, I'll try to change your back as much as I can to, you know, meet those requirements. I can't always, because if you have 7 or 8 seams, you know, I can't open them all up if they're all sewn across. But I can do it for you. I don't mind working on your quilt to make it better. You know, I'm not going to change your quilt, but I will work on your backing to get it better.
Yeah, to get it all right. Now, you require a 4 inches all around is kind of the standard, a larger backing that's 4 inches all around. And is that something that just, helps you work on the long arm, or what's the deal with that? Because sometimes we have people come in and they have exactly the same size as the quilt top.
Yeah. Well, when you mount your quilt on one of the long arm machines, on the top, you have a leader that you have to pin to. So immediately that takes up a 1/4 inch, and you pin to the bottom, and immediately that takes up a 1/4 inch. So we've already lost a 1/2 inch for my machine. And then you don't want to run into your leaders with your machine. Stitch down your top of the quilt and in your batting. So that just gives you 2 inches at the top of the quilt then and 2 inches at the bottom of the quilt that allow you to mount the quilt on there nice and even. And then on the side, you need to have 2 inches at a minimum on each side so that we have clamps that hold the quilt so it doesn't bounce around and the stitches. And if I don't have that, if I have nothing, then I can't stitch to the entire edge of your quilt because my clamps go on there. I can kind of move them around, but it doesn't work.
Right.
Giving me too much fabric is bad because then I have to fiddle around and put batting up in there and take as it rolls. So I have some people that give me 12 extra inches on each side. And I really don't want to cut that off because I don't know what their intentions are.
Right.
So lots of times I'll mount it just kind of to the side, and I'll have, maybe 20 inches sticking off on one side. I kind of look at it, try to see what they're thinking.
Right.
But you do need a minimum of 4 inches.
Okay, good. Very good. So when we cut backings for people, we do tear the backing. It's kind of therapeutic in a way to tear backings, isn't it?
It is. It's very therapeutic. If it's a customer that's not used to it, you can send them over the edge.
I know, we tell them that we're going to do that because sometimes they come in and they love the wide backings, and oh my gosh, the prints that are available in wide backings now are so beautiful. Right. But we tell them, okay, because we measure it out and we say, okay, we're going to rip this, and some of them get the why, and I'm like, your quilter wants this, I promise you. And a couple of them have asked us to rip it. And but most of them go, oh, good, thank you. I'm so glad. They're happy that we do that. But yeah, we make a habit of ripping our backings.
Yes. So a lot of people buy the 108 wide, and they buy it online or something. And so they'll buy 3 yards. 100 inches is 3 yards. And they'll buy it. It'll be prepackaged, and that is not ripped. And so, and they lose out on that. And because I have to fix that for them, and it's a problem. So the other day, a client gave me back, from online. I had to open the package up, and it was packed from online. It was ripped.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was like, woohoo! Actually, Michelle Waters, that was you. Yeah, so I was impressed. So I think they're getting it. The shops are getting it, and they understand what's going on. So that's good.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Lynne, thank you so much for joining us. I was looking to see if anybody else has any questions. Brandy says it's a privilege to have Lynne as your quilter, so prep your quilts accordingly so that she can do her very best work. And we know that's good advice because Brandy has also won numerous ribbons, and Lynne is her quilter, right?
That's right.
So, yes, that's right. It
well,
is.
When it's all over, we're going to come up to the shop and test.
That's right.
But we don't know.
Oh my gosh, I'm so ready to have a party. We had margaritas yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah. We had margaritas in the store yesterday.
And I guess the one is having brandy.
Okay, and somebody else also asked, what was the name of the book that you referenced at the very beginning?
It's okay if you sit on my quilt. I don't know if it's being published anymore, but it was by Mary Ellen Hopkins, who has passed away.
Okay, Mary Ellen Hopkins, It's Okay If You Sit on My Quilt.
Yeah, and I know she lectured in a couple of times.
Yeah,
So.
we want people to use their quilts, use the quilts we give them, or at least I do.
And it's okay if the dog sits on your quilt.
But I don't want you to give it to the dog. That's not my idea of using the quilt. You'll be deemed non-quilt worthy at that point.
Okay.
No.
I didn't get any chickens for Easter. Remember that?
Yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, like, that made me sad.
They're a little bit of a headache. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. We have absolutely enjoyed having you and appreciate all the advice you have given us. And gosh, I cannot say enough good things about your quilting that you do for us here at the store. She's our exclusive quilter, if you don't know that already, and does fabulous jobs for us. And it's been an absolute joy always working with you. We've been working together now, gosh, 4 or 5 years or something, and I love it.
I think 7. 7 years.
You're right. It is. Yes, you're right, because I met you with Susan.
Mm-hmm. When you came to my house and got in my machine.
Yeah. A funny thing to tell people is that I recently got a long arm and it has the computer on it. And Lynne said, are you going to start doing long arm for customers? I mean, they're like, we done? And I was like, no. We're nowhere near that talent yet.
You'll get up to it. I got some, and I saw that you were asking about, cantilevering your needle. You found out about you need to pick my brain when I come up there. I knew all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff like this. Nobody asks me.
Well, I didn't know that. And it didn't dawn on me. And the way it's working out right now, Lori and I are quilting, like putting on quilts at 5 o'clock at night when we finally have time to do it. So by then we're not really like, who should we ask? It's like, crap, now what happened?
You can call me up at 5 o'clock at night. You know what? I'm here in my house.
I know. Let's see. Where are you going? Nowhere.
I'll probably say, oh wait, we're watching Jeopardy and we're drinking wine.
Yeah, that's us. We're watching TV and having a cocktail. So
it'll be okay.
I know, I will. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you. And we will let you. Yes, thank you. We'll see you later. Okay. Bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and meeting Lynne Haley. And I hope if you ever need anything quilted, you will bring it to us because she does a fabulous job, award-winning, and just a delightful, delightful person to work with. Don't forget to tune in on Monday afternoon at 2 o'clock. We will be meeting with Krista Moser from The Quilted Life. If you want to look up her website, The Quilted Life, Krista Moser, Krista is with a K. Look it up and see some of her stuff. What a great person also. She's so much fun to talk to. And we will see you on Monday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And have a great weekend. We will see you later. Bye.